Hello, and thank you for giving us another opportunity to spend some time with you on Stairway to Health, brought to you by Health Experts Canada. We've got some great ideas, new information, and hopefully a few laughs for you today. Who knows? If you're not careful, you may learn something.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Stairway to Health podcast. I'm your host, Frank Peary, and I'm here with
Marilyn Mitchell.
And Marilyn, I just wanted to talk today about an experience, my experience.
Okay.
I just got back from overseas. I was in Italy. I was in Sicily, a very specific part of Italy. And I was there for a
long time is what you were there.
A length of time. But it was a fabulous trip. It was very eye-opening. It was a learning experience for me. I had never been to Sicily before, even though that's where half of my family is from. And it's amazing what I learned on that trip.
What do you mean? Like you mean about your family?
Well, I mean in general about health. Italy contains one of the largest what's the word I'm looking for? One of the largest segments of the world population that tends to live into their hundreds.
Oh,
they live an incredibly long life, and for the most part, very healthy life. Mm-hmm. Very contrasting to what we see here in North America. When we talk about aging here in North America, so many people immediately jump to the conclusion of a negative, right? Mm-hmm. Aging holds some kind of a negative connotation in their mind. Aches, pains, illness, decrepitness,
well,
disease,
true.
right?
That's what we get.
And over there, that's just not the case. There's a whole reverence for aging.
So do you mean just how, like, the younger people look at the older generations, or do you mean how the older generations look at themselves?
I think a little bit of both.
Oh, okay.
I think the reality is that there is so much life to live over there in most of Europe. I mean, I've had the privilege of traveling through most of Europe, and I see this a lot over there, no matter where I am. But in this particular case, so many of the people have this incredible lust for life in general. They want to live it to the fullest. And everything they do, they have such a zest for life. I mean, it could be as simple as just walking to the coffee shop, the local cafe, meeting up with their friends. There's so much love for doing that. It could be that they're going fishing that day because they're fishermen and they have to get out on the boat and haul in their catch for the day in order to put, food on the table. There's such a zest for doing that.
You know what I found, and as you know, I've gone to a lot of places in Europe as well, but the big contrast that I found is that we in North America tend to spend most of our time indoors, whether we're in work or whether we're in the house or whether we go to visit friends, we sit in their homes. But I noticed that in Europe, first of all, people are up much earlier than most people are up here, unless they have to be. Like if you have to get up to go to work, you do. But Europeans tend to want to get up earlier. They have their meals, they go out, they go shopping every day to get stuff, and then they rest in the afternoon for a little while before they go out again at night. But I really find that their lust for fresh air and sunshine is really great.
Well, it is. It's so very true. They do not wish to waste any of the day. That's big on their priority lists. They do not wish to waste the day away. Every day is a new opportunity to live more life. And I know this sounds very bizarre, and a lot of our listeners out there might be thinking, this is the strangest conversation, but let's think about it in terms of North Americans. It's almost like we're robots in a society where we know we have to get up at the same time every day. We know we have to go to work. We know we have to put in our time. We know we have to come home. We know we have to have dinner. We know we have to go. I mean, it's very robotic. It's very static, right? In terms of how most people live. Now, I'm not saying everyone. And certainly a lot of us do enjoy going out and commiserating with friends and participating in outdoor activities and so forth. And a lot of us do try to live a very healthy lifestyle in North America, but it's different in Europe because it's widely accepted that that's just the way it should be. You wake up in the morning, you tend to your family, you get out and you start to do things. They spend as little time inside their homes or apartments as they possibly can. They wish to spend more time outside walking, shopping the local markets, meeting up with friends, meeting for lunch, going out for dinners.
Okay, but when do they work?
Like, well, they do work.
Okay.
They all do work. But you see, in Europe, obviously, like you just said, they rest in the afternoon. So it's a very different mindset in terms of how they live their day. They know that they have to recharge and recuperate in the afternoon. So they work, let's say, an 8-hour day. But it's split.
Oh,
so
I get it.
They work until from 9 a.m. until 1 p.m. Then they close everything down. Then they go for lunch because the restaurants only open from 1 until 3. And then they usually have about an hour after lunch or after that 2-hour lunch break where they rest and relax before reopening their businesses at 4 until 8 p.m., which is what time the restaurants will open again for dinner. So it's a very, very different lifestyle. I'm not saying it's perfect, and I'm certainly not saying it's for everyone. It took a lot of getting used to for me, I'll tell you.
Yeah, getting up early would take a lot of something. But here's my question. You touched briefly on, the restaurants and going home for lunch to eat and that. What did you find about the food?
Well, that's the amazing part. Everybody there shops daily for their food, whether they shop multiple times per day. So they go out in the morning, shop for their food for their lunch, and then after in the afternoon, go out and shop for their food for dinner, or whether they go out once a day and shop for their fresh food for both lunch and dinner. Either way, you see it both. And they shop the local markets. So you're seeing a lot of fresh produce coming right from the farm, set up in the streets in the local markets, and that's where people are buying their produce. You see that the fishermen in the mornings haul their catch either from that morning or from the day before, and they bring it up to the local fish markets, and it's fresh and it's all prepared, and everything is laid out for everyone out there to choose from in terms of what they want for their meals, for their dinner. So there's also a very different mentality when it comes to growing. Most of the food supply in Europe, especially in Sicily, where I was centralized, it's very organic growing. They have a love for real, fresh food. And it's grown to ripeness, and it's harvested at ripeness, and it's served and sold at ripeness. So there's no artificial ripening of foods, and there's no long distance for traveling. Even though Sicily is an island, it's blessed with the fact that there's plenty of agriculture there.
Well, that would make sense, because if somebody's going out every day to buy their fresh fruit and vegetables to be eaten that day, it would have to be sold at the peak, because here, I know for me, if I buy a bunch of bananas, I will look at them and some might be a little riper than others, but that's fine with me because I'll have one tomorrow and then one the next day or the next day after that. So they're going to ripen as I need them, because I got to tell you this, with my schedule, I don't go out shopping every day.
No,
so
true.
That's would be the difference. When I buy tomatoes, I do. I pick them out, and I would pick one that I would have tonight for dinner and one that may not be ready until tomorrow, and one. So, I shop totally differently. If I went out every day to get my fresh produce and fresh fruit, I choose differently.
Very much so. And I think that's the beauty of local country markets, if you will. Unfortunately, long gone are the days when the local, where the abundance of grocery shopping and food and produce markets and such were those open air markets that were everywhere, right? Everything
Yeah,
was
you're right.
brought in fresh that day. Everything was sold fresh that day. I mean, you do still have them. They are still around. And some of us are lucky enough and blessed enough to have them in our neighborhoods or in our communities. And I guess what I'm trying to say is I think it's very important that we as a North American culture and society try to get away from that massive bulk buying idea.
You mean having all your fruit and vegetables come in plastic clamshells that you pop open and that?
And maybe go into some of these local markets, these locally owned, family owned and operated markets, these fresh produce markets, and purchase things a little more ripe and a little more fresh. You're going to get far better quality food.
And you would think, or I just would think, that if you're going to buy food more often in smaller amounts for when you need them, you would waste far little. Like
For less. Yeah.
Because when you're going out to buy a tomato that's going to last you today and tomorrow, if you're going shopping the next day, you're not buying 5 tomatoes, forgetting about them in the crisp or picking them up as a science project, and
exactly
throwing them in the garbage when it comes to garbage day.
That's true. Far less waste. So I just think that their food supply is very, very different in Europe in general, but certainly in Sicily where I was, than it is here in North America. But we still, as North Americans, we still have the privilege and the benefit of sourcing some of these local markets and choosing to purchase our foods fresher. And I think that's a very important aspect to their whole idea of healthy aging. It's also that mindset. When they get up in the morning, they're not getting up dreading the fact that they have, another day, another dollar. They don't think about life like that. They think about it as, oh my goodness, another day, another opportunity to see my friends, to be with my family, to, provide whatever it is they do for a living. I mean, it's exceptional how much love they have for life, right? And when you're out walking, because they spend so little time actually inside their homes, they're spending far more time outside walking. Very few cities throughout Europe have big gyms and fitness facilities.
No, they don't need
because there's a lot of up and down hills and mountains and trekking, and there's so much more opportunity to get your daily physical fitness and activity.
When I was a few years ago, when I was in Italy, what I found most interesting, and in Paris as well, when I was there, when you go to get a coffee, you buy a coffee, it's really nice, and they give it to you. There's no place to drink it inside. It's not like here where you go to your local coffee shop and pull up a table and you sit down inside and you sit at a table for 6 by yourself and do your thing on your phone. They assume when you buy the coffee that you're taking it to leave. You're going to walk, you're going to sit outside, you're going to sit on the curb, you're going to sit under the tree, and that's where you're going to drink your coffee.
Yeah, not that you're taking their porcelain glassware and taking off down the street. No, I mean, they definitely want you still within the vicinity of the cafe, but you're absolutely right. There's no tables and chairs inside these places. They're outside. They're on the sidewalks. They're in the piazzas. They're in the local, city squares.
And what about when you're sitting there? In my case, I was by myself sitting there at a table, and all of a sudden 2 other people came down, sat down, started talking. And I'm thinking, did they not know this was my table?
Yeah, no, you meet a lot of new friends in
Yes.
Europe.
Absolutely do. They don't think of things like that. When you're outside and when you're sitting down and people beside you are talking to you, they're carrying on. It's just like a big a big family of people.
You're right. And again, it goes back to that mindset of that whole social community concept. Health is something that depends greatly on the power of your mind. And it depends greatly on the sense of community that you have around you. And I think that's another big factor in why they all age very well over in Europe. I mean, let's not kid ourselves. They have very strict rules and regulations when it comes to GMOs,
GMOs,
genetically modified organisms and foods. Most of their food supply either is not at all genetically modified, or if it is, in Europe, it must be labeled as such so that the consumer has the opportunity to choose. Do I want fresh, organically grown, locally grown product, or do I want something that's been genetically modified and grown?
Isn't that great, eh?
So it's a spectacular option given to the general public. So obviously, they have a chance to make a better choice when it comes to feeding their bodies and what their overall health is going to look like.
Now, I found, and maybe it was the same for you, when you're taking this food, this fresh food that they got today, their recipes that they use when making their dinners and their lunches are far different than what we do here.
Well, they're simple.
Exactly.
They don't complicate anything.
Mm-hmm.
Everything is quite simple in terms of how they cook and what they cook with. But the flavor and the taste that comes through from that quality of fresh food is out of this world. It's spectacular. It's unlike anything most people have ever tried. I mean, hopefully most people get to try and taste something that fresh and that good, but they don't get bogged down with the whole idea of, what do I have to cook? How do I have to cook this? How should this be prepared? What ingredients am I going to need? It's literally whatever they have in the house, and they're able to whip something up very quick and very simple.
Or whatever is growing at that time.
At that time of year. It's another big reason for their ultimate level of health and longevity. They get to choose what's in season, and they tend to eat only what's in season. They're not looking for a lot of imported food product. Their availability to processed foods is far less than what we have accessible to us here in North America.
Well, sometimes that's not such a bad thing.
Not such a bad thing at all. All I know is that the impact of healthy foods, fresh air, sunshine, activity level, it all tends to lead to a longer, more healthy, more vibrant life. And it really does change a person's outlook in terms of how they age and how well they age moving forward.
And isn't that what we want?
That's exactly what we want. Well, that's all the time we have for today. I'm Frank Peary.
And I'm Marilyn Mitchell. Until next time, remember, health equals wealth. So that's all the time we have today, but there's still so much more to talk about and learn. Head over to healthexpertscanada.com for more ideas on healthy living, and don't forget to like, download, and share this podcast with your friends, just for the health of it.